And she knew I was tweaking, so she called the fucking cops on me. I used to be a master at manipulating the police. Not manipulating the police, but just not giving them any red flags. And been holding like 3 or 4 felonies on my person. And I was able to fucking persuade him and get the fuck away. So let me tell you this one story, okay? I've been up tweaking all night, right? And I used to ride a bicycle. I had a nice chrome molly Robinson BMX. I love that fucking thing. And I was cruising around. It was about 6 in the morning. And I stopped at this gas station. Well, my ex-girlfriend lived in that same neighborhood at the time. This will be important later. But anyways, I was sitting there. I was adjusting the brakes on my bike. And these cops rolled up. And they started questioning me. Hey, what are you doing here? Do you have ID on you? And so I was like, well, what do you guys need my ID for? No, we got a call that there was a suspicious person on a bicycle. And in my backpack, I had this little secret compartment that you really have to try hard to find. So I had everything safely stashed in there. So I was like, dude, they're not going to find that. And so I just stayed calm. Like, I was like, you know what? It's not time to panic. I used to tell myself, it's not time to panic until it's time to panic. Anyways, they're harassing me, and they're like, well, can we see inside your backpack? I was like, well, no. I mean, I haven't committed a crime. They're like, well, do you mind opening it up and, like, showing us what's in there? I was like, yeah, sure, fine. So I start pulling the stuff out. You know, I had, like, a flannel. You know, I had my whole tweaker gear in there. You know, I carried, like, a flannel, a hoodie, you know, flashlights, you know, whatever. I didn't have any flashlights in there at the time, but... So I pulled this stuff out and had a minimal amount of stuff on me. So I had like a flannel hoodie, right? And I had this little tool bag that I would carry in there. What's that? And I was like, well, this is the toolkit for my bicycle. I use it to work on. So well, show us what each tool does. And so I took each tool out individually. And what they were getting at is, you know, they could have, you know, gone to the next step had they suspected that they were tools, you know, intended for robbing people. So I showed him what each tool did, and I showed him on the bicycles. This is for the brakes. Look, this is for the brakes. This is for my back wheel. This is my, you know, I had a bunch of stuff. You know, some really good bicycle tools. You know, for adjusting your bearings, for you know, adjusting the brakes. You know, I had some chain lube in there. You know, the whole 9 yards. And they're like, fuck. You know, you could tell they were kind of getting frustrated. Like, we want this guy. And so they couldn't get me. And then as I was zipping up my backpack, put all my stuff, said, okay, are we done here? And there's a little, you know, it was like, it had an internal spine and it had like a little thing for a water bladder. And out of the water bladder, you know, little hole in the backpack, it said H2O. Well, the cop, at one last ditch effort, said, oh, what's this? HO? Who is HO? And I corrected her, and I was like, no, that's H2O. So this is for a water bladder. You know, we got a water bladder that comes up, and it's got a tube that comes for drinking water. I don't have the water bladder on me right now. And they kind of looked at me for a while, and I said, okay, have a good day, sir. Well, let's get back to the girlfriend part. I think what happened was my girlfriend saw me at the gas station, you know, because that's kind of on her way to work. I was tweaking, so she called the fucking cops on me. I never got a clear answer on that, but that's my suspicion. But yeah, I got away. And I have several stories like that where I was able to persuade the cops enough and just knew what the fuck I was doing. I had a story. I was really fucking good at it. And that's all I got. Go fuck yourself.